Hello everyone. Today we're going to learn how to make this lacy stitch. This is a combination of puff stitches and Solomon stitches. For this we're going to use crochet hook 2.5 millimeters and any crochet yarn, but if it is thin it will look better. So let's get started. To make this pattern, you need to chain in multiples of 11. So for this tutorial, I have worked a chain of 55. Now, after you've gone ahead and chained the length that you need in multiples of 11, you need to hold on to the chain, your last chain, that is right near the needle. That's right here, this one. And then you chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you go ahead and work a double crochet into the stitch that you held on to. You can use a stitch marker here to mark your stitch if you need. Now this is what you have. After this you chain 2 and then you skip 2 stitches. That's 1, 2, and into the third one you work 1 double crochet. Now you chain 2 again. You skip 2 stitches. Into the third one you work 1 double crochet. Chain 2, skip 2 stitches. Into the third one you work 1 double crochet. So this is the pattern for the entire row, your entire first row. So you need to chain 2, skip 2 stitches, and into the third one you work 1 double crochet through your entire row. You can go ahead and pause the video and meet me when you're done with your row. I've completed the row. This is what it should look like. Now once you've done that, you turn your work and you make 1 slip stitch in the first chain space. So this is your chain space. We are going to go ahead and work a slip stitch right into that. Now you chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we work our first puff stitch by pulling up the yarn 4 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's our first puff stitch, and you complete it. Now chain 2. Now in the same chain space you work your second puff stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you complete your stitch. So this is what you have here. Your first puff stitch, chain 2, and your second puff stitch. Now you need to skip the next chain space and you go directly into the next one and you work a puff stitch there. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain 2 and your next puff stitch. 2, 3, and 4. So we worked our 2 chain spaces, leaving one in between. So now you skip the next one and you directly go into the next chain space. So we are skipping one in between each puff. So in the next one you repeat the same. So that's 1 puff stitch, 1, 2, 3 and 4. And now you chain 2, 1 and 2, and you work another puff stitch in the same chain space. It's 1, 2, 3 and 4. For those of you who do not know how to work a puff stitch, I have another video in which I have made some puff flowers. You can follow that first and then come back to this video. So we worked our stitch here. So in your second row, this is the same pattern you're going to work in your entire row. That is 1 puff stitch, chain 2, another puff stitch. You skip 1 chain and directly work into the next one. You need to go ahead and complete this row and meet me once you've done that. I've completed the row and now you need to turn your work. You work 1 slip stitch into the first chain space and then chain 3. Now you work 1 puff stitch, 3 and 4, chain 2 and another puff stitch in the same chain space. 1, 2, 3 and 4. So this is your first puff stitch. Now after you've done this, we work a Solomon knot. So for that you pull up a loop. You hold on to this yarn here. You yarn over, pull through your loop. Now you put your hook into this space right here. You yarn over again, pull it through that loop. Now you have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. So this is how you work a Solomon knot. Now you directly go to your chain space in between the next 2 puffs and you work a single crochet into that space. So we worked our first knot here. Now we work the next one. So another Solomon knot here. That's 1, and this time we work a second one as well. So that's 2. And then we go directly into the next one and the next puff stitch, the chain between the next puff stitch, and we work a single crochet. Now you need to work 1 more. And in the next space, next chain space, we need to directly work your puff stitches, the same above this. So that's 1 puff stitch, chain 2 and another puff stitch. So you start with the first one. That's your first puff. You hold on to your Solomon stitch on the needle carefully. because you have to work your puff with it. Like this. And then you chain 2 and you work your next puff in the same chain space. 2, 3 and 4. Now this looks a little confusing, but I'm sure you will get it. I'll go through it one more time. What we did here is, in the first chain space we made 2 puff stitches with chain 2 in between, and then we made 1 Solomon stitch, attached it to the next puff stitch with a single crochet. After that we worked 2 Solomon stitches right here. We attached it to the next chain space, the next puff stitch in between this space, and then we worked 1 Solomon stitch and attached it right here. We continued the last one with 2 puff stitches right into this space. So we'll work that one more time. This is the same pattern from year to year. You repeat in your entire row. So we start from the beginning here. That's the first stitch. Now after the first stitch, you attach this directly into this chain space between your next 2 puffs with a single crochet. Now after you work the first one, the next set will be 2 Solomon stitches. So that's the first one. That's the second one. And then you attach it in the next puff stitch that's in between with a single crochet. And then you work just 1. And then you directly work a puff stitch into the next chain space. Two, 3 and 4, chain 2, 1 more puff stitch into the space. 2 and 3 and 4, so that is the pattern for the entire row. Where you have these puff stitches, the entire row you would have of puff stitches. That's 1 row here, 1 row here, 1 row here, and then you would be continuing with similar patterns, so you would have more rows of these. So you can go ahead and finish this row, and I'll meet you once we've done that. I have completed my row, and now you need to turn your work. And then you slip stitch in the first chain space and chain 3, and you repeat the same pattern here, that is puff stitch, 2, 3 and 4, chain 2, and the second puff stitch in the same chain space, 1, 2, 3, okay. Alright, so now we are going to start the next row of the Solomon stitches. So this time we need to work 2 Solomon stitches. So here we go ahead and make the first one. So This is the first one, and now we work the second one. We worked the first one directly after your puff stitch, that is this one, and then we work another one, the second stitch. Okay, now this time we need to attach this into this. So in the earlier row we had made something like this, 2 Solomon stitches right here. So in between that we need to attach these two with a single crochet. Okay, so you will get something like this, and then you work 2 again. So that's 1, and this is your second one. Okay, and then you directly work the puff stitch into this space. So you worked your first puff stitch, then you worked 2 Solomon stitches and worked a single crochet in between your first row of your 2 Solomon stitches. After that you work 2 Solomon stitches, and then you work directly a puff stitch into this chain space here, into your puff stitch of your earlier row. So this is the first one, 2 and 3. Chain 2, 1, 2, and then you work your second puff stitch. Okay, so we've got this. This is your earlier row of your Solomon stitch. This is the next row. We'll do it one more time. So you need to repeat this same pattern in your entire row from here to here. So you start with a Solomon stitch. That's the first one. This is your second one, and you attach it in between these two, the 2 Solomon stitch that you have. That's right here. Okay, then you work 2 more Solomon stitches. It's 1, and that's 2. Okay, now you have 2. Now after this you directly work a puff stitch into this space right here. So holding on to your Solomon stitch, you need to work a puff stitch directly here. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, and then you chain 2 and then you complete it with another puff stitch. So this is the pattern that you need to repeat throughout the row. You can go ahead and do that, and then we'll continue with the next row. So now we are on our next row. I have already done the slip stitch and the puff stitch with the chain in between. That's a similar pattern that you follow throughout this row. Now after that you need to work 1 Solomon stitch, just 1, and then you work a single crochet in between these 2. So right here. All right, now you work 2 Solomon stitches. That's 1, and that's 2, and then you work a single crochet into this one. You do not work in this one, you work in the next one. So this is your previous row of three knots here, 1 2 3. So you worked in the first one, you skip this one, and we go to the next one that is closer to your puff stitch. It's right here. So this is what you have. Now you work another one, and then you work your puff stitch, the same pattern right here into the chain space. So that is one puff stitch, chain 2, and another puff stitch in the same space. Okay, yeah, so we'll repeat this again. There's the same pattern from year to year which you need to follow throughout the row. So we repeat it. We make one stitch and we attach it to the first joint here with a single crochet. I'm not getting it here. Yeah, single crochet. Now you work 2, that's 1, and this is the second one, and then you join it. You skip this knot and you join it to the next one. Okay, and then you make one more, and then you work your puff stitch in this directly. So that's your puff, and 4, and then you continue with your chain 2 and your puff and the same pattern here. So this is what it should look like. So we are on our next row now. I have gone ahead and made the first part of the row. Now we need to repeat this row. That is where we had started with 2 Solomon knots and attached it on the center. So we are going to go ahead and do that. So we are going to make 2. That's our first one, and that's our second one. Okay, and then we attach it directly to the center knot here, the center knot. Right here, and then we go ahead and work 2. It's 1, and that's 2. Okay, and then you directly work your puff stitch. So this is the pattern for this row, and after this you repeat the previous row before this. I'll show you that. It's 1 puff, the chain 2, and your puff stitch again. Okay, so after this you start with this. So that's your Solomon, then you attach it in between and the puff stitch again. So this row and this row will be repetitive. So I'll go ahead and show you the next row one more time, and then you would get a better picture. So for this you continue with your Solomon knot and attach it right here and finish the row. Okay, so I've completed my row and I have already started with this, the next row, the first part. So basically this entire pattern is a repeat of 2 rows. That is the one that we just made and this one. So for this, we've done this previously, but I'm repeating this again. So for this one, you pull up your loop and work 1 Solomon knot. Okay, and now you go ahead and work in this space your first knot. You work a single crochet there. Now in the next, you'll be working 2 Solomon knots. That's 1, and this is the second one. Okay, now you attach it not to this knot, you attach it the next one right here. Okay, and then you work your last Solomon knot, and then you work your puff stitch directly over here. So it is just a repeat of 2 rows that you will be working, just these 2 rows over and over again till the length that you would get this pattern that I showed you earlier. I hope you enjoyed my video. I would like to take a moment and thank everyone who subscribed to my channel. I have crossed over 100 subscribers. I would like to thank you for your love and support. I love reading your comments, so please leave more of them. If you have any request for any tutorials that I can show you, please feel free to leave that in the comment. Thank you so much. Please, whoever is watching my video, go ahead and subscribe to my channel.